Hello and welcome to GameStack. This time we're talking about games that didn't used to exist in the physical realm, but now they do.
Yeah, these were games that were digital only at one point, and they sold a lot, I guess. I mean, I bought a few of them, and now that they're released on physical copy, you know, I bought a couple more.
Yeah, well, that's what they were exactly hoping you'd do.
And they got me.
And yes, they did. Anyway, let's check out a few of these games that were lucky enough to get a physical release. Shovel Knight is a great game that recently received a physical copy on the PS4, Xbone, Wii U, and 3DS. I'm playing on the PlayStation 4 here because the PS4 is the most powerful system. Alright, so this game really doesn't crunch CPU power. That's okay though. When this game was originally announced, I didn't pay much attention to it. Even after it came out and received lavish praise, I held off hoping for a physical release. Well, that time eventually came and I waited to play the game until I got it. In fact, this right here is my very first time playing it. Now, I'm normally really weary of playing games that are universally praised like this one. It raises my hopes too high, and I think people seem to go nuts if anyone dares criticize the game. Well, after playing for a couple of hours, I can safely say that I was not let down, not in the least. In fact, it's a lot better than I thought it would be. So basically, you're Shovel Knight and you need to save the kingdom and blah blah blah. The story doesn't matter too much here, but it is fun to read the dialogue between everyone. You attack by using your shovel, obviously. You can bounce on enemies like DuckTales or Castle of Illusion, but the mechanic is not exactly like DuckTales, and again, that's fine. You can also use magic attacks and do lots of other things once you're equipped to do so. During the stages, you'll be collecting lots of jewels and stuff like that, which earns you money. You'll pass crystals which act as checkpoints, but you can also smash them to get some big bucks. However, if you do that, it won't act as a checkpoint anymore. There's also lots of hidden rooms to explore as well as treasure chests with even more money inside. Between stages, you wander into a town that reminds me a lot of the Sega CD game Potful Mail in the way you talk to everyone. Here you can also increase your life and magic as well as buy new attacks and whatnot. It's always fun to return to the town. I remember when Dave talked about this game a few months ago and I was editing it. I thought the town stuff looked boring as hell. Nope, it's fun as hell, and hell is definitely fun. In fact, this entire game is a lot more fun to play than it is to watch, believe me. This game follows the current fad or trend of 8-bit style graphics with 32-bit style scrolling. Yeah, it's starting to get a bit overused, but that doesn't mean the visuals aren't enjoyable. I like all the layers of parallax as well as the enemy designs, especially the larger ones. The music was made to sound like a beefed up NES, and the game's in mono, just like a real Nintendo Entertainment System. The music is actually quite catching. Hell, no, it's outstanding. Jake Kaufman did a great job here, but seriously, the dude always does a great job. Except for building stable websites, but that's another conversation for a different time. All in all, this game is extremely addictive and I love visiting new places and even old places again. The control is quick and responsive, and if you die, it's your fault. The game makes me want to keep trying no matter how much I die. It seems that I have unlimited lives, so that's good. What's not good is that I lose a quarter of my fat stacks when I die. At least they can be recollected. The game is kind of easy, but I found myself having a hard time learning the patterns of the bosses. That's because I defeat them so quickly and I just didn't have time to learn anything. That's okay though, because at least I'm having fun. I love the platforming in here, and there are many tricks that you'll need to learn in order to advance. The game comes in the typical PlayStation 4 box, which looks nice. The disc is also cool as well, but what's really cool is that the game came with an actual instruction manual. Remember those? This one is made out of actual paper, and I'm sure it caused the death of many trees. Good! I'd rather have instruction manuals than trees anyway. Oh, and yes, it smells absolutely wonderful. Lastly, the game came with a code to download the music soundtrack. Normal retail copies won't include this because it was a pre-order perk. So, bottom line, I can't recommend this game enough. It should be in everyone's collection, and now you can get it for real. I'm sure they're gonna make a sequel, and I hope they come out with a real physical copy as well. I also can't wait until they start bringing out lots of games that imitate 16-bit style graphics.
Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons is a puzzle platformer by Starbreeze. This game was released digitally in 2013 to really good reviews. I'm playing it on the PlayStation 4 here, but it was also released on the PS3, Xbox 360, and Xbone, among other platforms. I always liked the look of this game and thought it'd be something I'd like, but the fact that I'm not a big fan of digital-only games kept me from buying it. I do buy digital games on occasion, but I'm pretty picky about which ones I'll spend my money on, and at the time this wasn't going to be one of them. A couple of years later, 505 Games bought the rights to this title and did me and a lot of other people a huge favor and released a physical copy of the game. Needless to say, at only $20, I was sold and scooped it up right away. So the story unfolds that the mother of these two died by drowning and the little brother couldn't save her. Now the father is sick with something and the village doctor gives you a map and off you go. There's no intelligible voice here, so you just have to assume that you're off to find a cure for your old man. When I saw the controls for this game, my first thought was, oh god, this is not going to be fun. They really are weird, as you actually control both brothers at the same time. The big brother gets controlled by the left analog stick, and the little brother gets controlled by the right one. Besides that, the L2 and R2 shoulder buttons are used as an action button for each of them, and you can control the camera with the L1 and R1 buttons. That's it! You don't use any other button on the controller for gameplay. At first it was strange controlling both characters at once, but it really didn't take long to get the hang of it. Typically the brothers are close enough to each other that it feels normal using both sticks. I really started to like the gameplay almost immediately. Most of the obstacles you run into have very obvious solutions, and you can see what you need to do before you even start attacking the problem. Like here, where you have to cross this field on these hay bales, but there's a mean-ass dog that wants to take a bite out of your leg. There's stuff like this all throughout the game, and even though it's not challenging, it's still fun. Each brother also has different abilities that will need to be used in solving a lot of the problems. The big brother, being stronger, can easily use bigger levers, while the little one isn't strong enough. The smaller brother can fit through bars, where the big brother is, well, too big. Besides the unique gameplay, I think what I like most about this title is the imagery. As you can see, the graphics are lush and colorful. They have a lot of detail to them, but they still have a very cartoony feel. Even so, there's still quite a bit of mature themes going on here. Like in this part where you stumble upon some guy just about to hang himself. You've made it just in time to save his life. His house is burned down and his wife and child have died, and he's ready to join them. Then there's this scene, which is probably my favorite in the game. You and your brother make your way through the aftermath of a battle between giants. There's huge bodies all throughout the mountainside bleeding out. Not only that, but you have to make a path sometimes, and this involves doing more damage to the already deceased bodies. Like here, where you have to cleave a leg off to get by. Or here, where this fallen warrior's arm is blocking the path. Just shoot him in the head with a crossbow. That will get his arm and more out of the way. This is just a great game all the way through, and especially for the cheap price. The physical copy of the game came with a manual. There's really not much in it, just a small bit about the story, the controls, and the warranty. The disc is nice and comes with an art gallery, the game's soundtrack, and a commentary with a walkthrough of the game by the director. So don't watch this part until you've beat the game. If you haven't played this game, give it a try, it's well worth the investment.
Retro City Rampage also got a physical release in the form of Retro City Rampage DX. This was released physically for the PlayStation 4 and the Vita. I have both. We're looking at gameplay from the Vita version here, and there's not really any difference between the two versions that I can tell. The game is an all-out parody of, well, basically everything. It makes fun of a lot of different video games, but mostly Grand Theft Auto. You roam the streets of Theptropolis in the year 20XX with an overhead view doing various missions. But you can also free roam and get various jobs. And yes, you can steal vehicles, run over pedestrians, and kill cops. The game's pace is extremely quick, so you need to pay close attention because it's constantly warping you from one scenario to the next. You're simply known as Player, and you start out by doing a bank robbery similar to Grand Theft Auto 5. Once done, a bus backs into the building just like the movie The Dark Knight. There are references to everything old and newish all over the place in this game. Eventually you get warped to the year 20XX, and now you and the doc must fix your time machine. But it needs lots of parts, and of course you're going to have to go about collecting them. You can do this at your leisure, which is nice. There's lots of places to explore in Theptropolis, like Nolan's Arcade. And here you can play a prototype ROM of Retro City Rampage, which really isn't very fun at all. Or you can play Epic Mealtime, which I can't quite figure out what the hell is going on. There's also Virtual Meat Boy, which I guess is like combining Super Meat Boy with the Virtual Boy into a driving game, I guess. Doesn't seem very Super Meat Boyish to me, but what the hell do I know? Anyway, you drive around and collect bandages and avoid obstacles. There's even a 3D mode, and yes, your red and blue anaglyph glasses will work. This one's moderately fun. But my favorite arcade game so far is Bit Trip Retro City. This is a running game where you grab the gold and try not to hit the obstacles. It's really addictive, even though I couldn't make it past stage 2. So what does the DX version of Retro City Rampage bring to the table? Mainly rebalanced gameplay and a few new small features like video modes. One new feature that I like is the weapon selection menu you get by pressing the L button. This is way better than cycling through all the weapons one by one with the R button. However, you can switch to the non-DX mode in the options screen if you truly prefer it. As I'm sure you've probably noticed by now, the game uses a retro mode for its visuals. In this one, the graphics are pretty damn blocky compared to, say, Shovel Knight, but that's fine. There's a ton of stuff on the screen and everything moves very quickly, maybe too quickly. When you change the direction that you're facing, the screen snaps and scrolls so fast that it can be quite disorientating and annoying. The sound and music is once again chiptunes, and they sound pretty good. Jake Kaufman, Leonard Paul, and Matt Creamer shared composing responsibilities. Some of the tunes purposely sound a lot like older game tunes. It's good and all, but I really can't wait until 16-bit chiptunes become the new fad. Or at least some non-NES chiptunes. Sometimes it feels like the NES is the only thing that people are nostalgic for, at least according to indie game developers. Still, I feel that they did a great job with the graphics, sound, and gameplay given that this entire game takes up less than 20 megabytes of space. The physical copy of the game was put out by Fangamer and sold online. You'll probably have to resort to places like eBay if you really want a physical copy. They did recently release a physical version for DOS though, and that's pretty cool. You can get that at the Retro City Rampage website. But you can get digital versions for the PC, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, Wii, Mac, 3DS, and hell, even Linux. And speaking of emulating a 16-bit style, the spiritual sequel called Shakedown Hawaii looks to do just that. Come on guys, please make sure this one gets a physical release too.
Alright, there we go. 3 great games that actually got a physical release, and I'm very, very happy that they did. How about you?
Of course I am. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't have bought them.
Well, yeah.
Shovel Knight is amazing.
Truly amazing. I'm just surprised you waited so long to get it.
It is worth it. It is worth it. I'm happy. Anyway, we've got 3 more games that got a physical release. Well, actually, technically more than 3.
Yeah, 3.
So let's go.
Here's the Journey Collector's Edition. Don't let the title confuse you because there's more to this disc than just Journey. Also included are Flow and Flower. I originally bought 2 of these games as digital copies. Flower and Journey I felt would be a good investment, and I wasn't disappointed. Flow, on the other hand, just didn't appeal to me, so let's start with that one. I really don't understand what the whole point of this game is. You start off as a small, probably microscopic sea creature. Every action in the game is motion controlled. You tilt the controller to move your plankton, and I've gotta say it works very well. All you have to do is run into other creatures out there and they'll die and disperse pieces of their body. You collect these things, and as you do, your body starts to grow. Once you've collected everything or enough of them, go and touch the amoeba with a red around it. This will take you down to a deeper level of the sea. There's more creatures for you to battle and eat. Just keep doing this and you'll continue to grow. The deeper you get, the bigger the enemies will get, and they'll eventually start to attack you also. It doesn't matter because by this time you're pretty big and will have no problems winning the battle and feasting on their remains. After a bunch of levels, it all starts over again and you have a different life form to control. The game is very repetitive and I have no idea if there's an end. I don't really care either because it's pretty boring doing the same thing over and over and over again. I'm glad I never spent money for a download of this one. Next up is Flower, and this is one I actually bought. In this game, you start out looking at a drab city that's decaying and seems to have no human life or plants or trees. In the windowsill is a flower, and once you use your controller to zoom in on it, you get taken away to a dream world for the flower. Again, this game is almost completely motion controlled. There's only one button and that controls the wind. All you have to do is find all the flowers in the level, which will open them up and a single petal will follow you. As you're doing this, you're bringing life back to the area. By the end of a level, you'll have a huge amount of flower petals that stretch out for a great distance. I was amazed at how vibrant the color and landscapes were in the first few levels. Later on, the levels do get darker because you're slowly heading back to the cities and mankind. Naturally, man is just evil, and he's ruining the planet, and that's the message I'm getting from this game. Luckily, I don't need to be taught that lesson, and I still have a fun time playing this game. It's quite an experience, and you won't find anything else like it around. And finally, for the main attraction, Journey. This is another game that I bought in digital form and it was well worth it. The game does use motion controls, but it's only for turning the camera. You can also use shoulder buttons to do the same thing, so luckily the game doesn't rely on them at all. At first it was strange because you start out in a desert and you're wondering what the hell's going on. In the distance you can see a large streamer, and your only instinct is to go there since there's nothing else around. At this point, this is where you first see the goal of the game. That mountain way in the distance? That's what you're ultimately making your way towards. The game does a great job of making the world feel very desolate. It seems huge and you feel very alone. Before long, you get a scarf which will give you the ability to float jump. Since your scarf is so small, you can't jump very far, and you can only jump when it has energy. You get energy all throughout the game by calling these floating pieces of fabric which will energize your scarf. Don't worry about the length of your scarf because you'll find these icons along the way which will make it longer. And eventually, by the end of the game, your scarf is super long. The story slowly unfolds at points throughout and at the end of a level. There's no dialogue, but you can guess what's going on. Sadly, the journey is only about 2 hours long, but you're engrossed the whole time. There's so much beautiful imagery in the game, from the setting sun here that makes the sand glisten like water, to the struggle of climbing the peaks of this snowy mountain. It's an experience that everyone should have. There's a 2-player option in the game to play with a random person on the quest with no dialogue between you, but as I was playing there was nobody else online, and that makes me sad. So the disc comes with some extras like some mini games. These really aren't worth mentioning as they feel very incomplete, so I was wondering why they were actually on here. The package came with an instruction manual that has a long story about the developers who call themselves That Game Company. It also goes over each of the 3 main games and how they came about with bits of story. It's a great package and you can still get it for super cheap, and I highly recommend it.
DuckTales Remastered received a physical release for the Wii U, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. This is, of course, a remake of the original version on the NES. You can watch Dave's review in our remakes episode if you really want to hear how it holds up as a remake. As for me, I never really played the original and I didn't get this version until it came out on disc. So I'm guessing this is probably my second time playing this. This is the Wii U version since at the time I didn't have much for the system and I wanted to give it a little love. But all versions should be more or less identical. You play as Scrooge McDuck looking for treasures in various parts of the world that are all just as easy to get to as crossing the street. You can choose from most of the levels right off the bat. Your main form of attack is bouncing on your cane. How the hell they thought this up as a way of attacking is beyond me, but it works and it's actually pretty fun to do. Not as fun as Shovel Knight though. You can also strike with your cane by holding forward and pressing the cane button. This is usually used to whack rocks and stuff into treasure chests or enemies. As you traverse a stage, gems will appear seemingly at random for you to collect to help satiate Scrooge's greed.
More money for me money bin.
They're not actually random though. If you touch a certain area, they'll just appear. You can also get stuff like ice cream. In any Disney-based duck game, be it Donald Duck on the Genesis or DuckTales on the NES, ice cream restores your life. There's also special items to collect in each stage in order to make your way to a boss encounter. There's a new introductory level that's been added on as a tutorial. Now, some would argue that this is included because the game didn't come with a manual, but I think that the gamers of today just kinda need this thing, otherwise they just give up right away. Anyway, the game plays very well and it's really fun, but it has a huge downfall which almost wrecks the game. You see, they hired the original cast of the cartoon to do voiceovers for the characters.
Really, Uncle Scrooge?
And in order to get their money's worth, they had them read an entire encyclopedia's worth of script. So the gameplay is constantly interrupted with cutscenes, and it soon becomes extremely annoying. Now, you can pause the game and select skip cinematic, but even that gets annoying as you have to do it so often. You should just be able to skip by pressing start or one of the buttons. Hell, you should be able to turn them off altogether. Now, I don't mind cutscenes at the beginning and the end of the stage, but they should never interrupt the flow of the game like they do so badly here. But like I said, the game itself is quite fun, even though I don't have the nostalgia for it that seemingly everyone else on the planet does. The graphics are wonderful, especially the animated 2D aspects. But don't get me wrong, some of the backgrounds look fantastic as well. The 2.5D aspects were kind of off-putting at first, but I got used to it. The music is also really good. It's been arranged from the NES version and mostly sounds great. The Moon Stage music is the best music ever written on the planet in the entire history of forever if the internet is to be believed. It's not bad, I guess. Once again, the music was done by Jake Kaufman. Damn, I guess if you want to make sure your game gets a physical release, have Jake do the music for it. Anyway, I'm glad to have a real version of this game, and I definitely recommend it, but those damn cutscenes, man. Anyway, pick it up if you can.
Here's the NES Remix Pack for the Wii U. This disc contains 2 games that were released separately to the Wii U eShop. The first NES Remix was released in 2013 and NES Remix 2 was released in early 2014. The physical copy of the game came out in late 2014. I originally bought the first game as this is the kind of stuff that I like. Nintendo makes fun mini-games that are based on full games. I didn't buy the second game since Japan had gotten a physical release of both games. My thoughts were that there'd be a very good chance that the US would get a physical copy, so I just waited to see what Nintendo's intentions were. Luckily I was right, so in reality I only bought the first game twice. Anyways, if you haven't played either of these games, here's the deal. Basically you're playing excerpts from 8-bit Nintendo games. For example, in Donkey Kong, one of your goals is to jump over 3 barrels. That's it! Once you complete that, you move on to the next challenge. Another example might be to do a wheelie for 3 seconds in Excite Bike. Then there's really stupid challenges like this one from Kirby where you have to watch the demo. That is a true challenge, being patient while watching a demo of a game you already know how to play. The game is set up so that you have 6 of Nintendo's franchises to play. Each title has from 8 to 14 or so separate challenges for you to complete. The challenges are all time-based, and depending on how quickly you finish the challenge, you can earn up to 3 stars. You want to earn as many stars as you can since this is how you unlock things in the game. At a certain number of stars, you'll unlock new NES games to play. The first game has a total of 16 titles when everything is unlocked, and the second game has a total of 12 titles. Not only do these stars unlock new games, but they also unlock remix stages. These are easily the highlight of both games as you play challenges that have strange and crazy ideas. Like here where you're in a stage from Super Mario Bros. Collecting coins as Kirby. Or here where you're Kirby trying to eat 20 eggs, avoiding bombs all while the screen keeps zooming in. This one took me a few tries. Once you get 15 or more eggs in Kirby, you have to have pretty quick reflexes to not accidentally eat a bomb. Or this one where you play Donkey Kong Jr. trying to make it to the top of the screen as all the platforms and ropes become invisible and then come back on. These remix stages are really entertaining and I've had a lot of fun with them. After playing for a while and doing challenges in lots of different titles from the NES library, I was left feeling that I want to play the original games in their entirety and not just tidbits of each. I think it would have been cool if Nintendo also had all the original games here complete for me to play through. It's even more bittersweet as you could play these games on your HD TV without an upscaler. These games play flawlessly with no lag at all. Is that too much to ask? Well, at least NES Remix 2 has a few extras that are worth mentioning. Firstly, it includes a game called Super Luigi Brothers. This is awesome as you're basically playing the original game but scrolling the other way. Everything is backwards, but it plays really well, and of course you play as Luigi, which is cool since he's my favorite of the two brothers. Another cool addition is the Championship mode. This is a good competition mode for you and your friends. You play little bits of Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, and Dr. Mario. Just like the original Championship, you get as far as you can in the time allowed to get the highest score possible. It's fun and it plays quickly and would be a great drinking game, I think. All in all, this is a great game disc to have, and you really should check it out if you haven't played it. Alright Nintendo, my body is ready for Super NES Remix titles. Make it happen!
All right, there you go. There's some games that were lucky enough to get a physical release. Dave, out of the games in this episode, which one was your favorite that got a physical release?
Well, that'd probably be the game that I've bought 3 times so far, 2 digital copies and a physical copy. That's Shovel Knight, Joe. That game is just freaking amazing. I love it. How about you?
Yeah, Shovel Knight, definitely gonna have to agree with you there.
Oh, man.
It's an amazing game. Everyone should have it, like I said.
Yeah, exactly. So what about you guys? What's your favorite? Are there any other games that we didn't talk about that got a physical release but were digital first that we should own or take a look at?
Yeah, or games that are up and coming that are going to get a physical release that are digital only right now. Tell us because we want to know about them. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. Dave, you got to tell me what your reason is for liking physical copies. I mean, look at all this. It takes up space. If you want to play a different game, you've got to switch out cartridges or switch out discs, and that takes so much effort, Dave.
What? Really? You're asking me why I want a physical copy of a game? I mean, really?
Yeah, that's actually some of the reasoning people have.
I'll tell you why. This is exactly why I want a physical copy of a game, Joe. Dummy, stop asking stupid questions.